250,000 protesters took to the streets Saturday night to protest Israel's judicial reforms. The question is, do any of these guys actually know what they are protesting against, or are they blindly following the agenda of the radical left? Last Thursday, a terrorist traveled to the heart of Tel Aviv and opened fire on a restaurant, injuring 3 Israelis who were dining inside. I'm Josiah, and this is the Israel Guys. Welcome to the Israel Guys, where we believe that in a world of Jew hatred and anti-Israel propaganda, you should have a direct connection to the land and people of Israel. Welcome back to the show, guys. First off, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. Also hit that notification bell if you don't want to miss any of the episodes of the Israel Guys. And if you hit that thumbs up button, if you like the show, also hit a thumbs up button if you like my new plant I added to my desk today. One of my producers here at the Israel Guys told me he didn't like the plant. I like the plant. And also another one of my producers said he did like it. So maybe it's up for you guys to decide. Hit that thumbs up button if you like it. If you don't, maybe just comment below, no plant on the desk. But that'll definitely throw us into the YouTube algorithm there. Also, guys, big news actually coming from the Israel Guys. We are coming to the United States here at the end of March to hold Israel Heartland rallies for the nation of Israel. Holding 2 rallies at this point in Nashville, Tennessee on March 26th. We're hosting a large Israel rally. And also in Dallas, Texas on March 30th, another big rally. And this is for Israel supporters from all over the United States, but specifically those who are able to come together, hear about what's happening in the heartland of Israel, come and stand in support for the biblical heartland of Israel, Judea and Samaria, falsely called the West Bank. Link will be in the description below. Absolutely free event. We request that you RSVP. You can do that with the link down in the description below. All right, guys. A few different things happening in Israel. Actually, a lot happening. We don't have time to talk about it all today. But on Thursday evening, there was another terror attack. This time, not anywhere inside of the quote-unquote green line inside of the West Bank. This one was in the heart of Tel Aviv. The attack actually happened on Dizengoff Street, which I'm sure you've heard of that. That's right near where a lot of the protests have been happening. The anti-judicial reform protests here in Israel have been happening close to there. I was actually just there on Dizengoff Street just last week. This attack happened. But this kind of goes to show and to bust the lie of the media, and I'll talk about that in a second, that this attack did not happen inside the Green Line, inside the quote-unquote West Bank in Judea and Samaria. This happened right in the heart of Tel Aviv, and this busts the lie of the media that wants you to believe that these terror attacks are only because, and they're in resistance to the quote-unquote occupation of the West Bank by Israel. So that's what the media says, that Israel's occupying the West Bank, and that these terror attacks are just resistance to that illegal, horrible, blah, 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 and, occupation of the West Bank. I'm sorry. This right here, these attacks like these goes to completely prove that point wrong. The goal of these attacks is not to end the occupation of the West Bank. The goal of these attacks is to eradicate Jews from the land of Israel. Now, if you go to any pro-Palestinian protest or rally anywhere in the world, you'll hear the chants. They say, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. And last I checked, the sea is the Mediterranean Sea. The river, they're talking about the Jordan River. That's the entire land of Israel. That's not just the quote-unquote West Bank, Judea and Samaria. That's the entire land of Israel. So don't believe any of those lies. They are trying to rid the entire land of Israel from the Jews. So this terror attack, terrorists arrived at a restaurant on Dizengoff Street, opened fire on the diners inside. Thankfully, his gun jammed. He wasn't able to injure more. There were 3 people that are injured. Security forces were able to take him out very quickly, neutralize him completely. There were 3 people injured, 1 critically, I think 1 serious and 1 lightly. Thank God. I just heard, I think yesterday, that the 2 that were seriously injured have started to recover, but you guys can continue to pray for the speedy recovery of those 2. Their names, the 2 that were very seriously injured, their names were Or Ashkar, who was 33, and Rotem Mansano, who was 35. So please continue to pray for the complete recovery of those 2 men. And thankfully, again, it could have been a lot worse. Open fire on these guys in the restaurant. But thankfully, it's gun jammed, and no more people were hurt. I think there was an additional like 2 people that were taken to the hospital and treated for shock. But the security forces were able to take him out very, very quickly in this case. So the spokesperson for Hamas kind of claimed this attack and said that this guy was affiliated with Hamas himself. He was carried out by this attack was carried out by a 23-year-old Palestinian Arab. And the spokesperson for Hamas said that this attack was response to the Zionist occupation. The Zionist occupation. He also warned, this is the spokesperson for the terror organization Hamas, he also warned that the, quote, continuation of aggression and the desecration of the Al-Aqsa Mosque will lead to more painful attacks against Israel as the Palestinians are willing to defend themselves and avenge the blood of the shaheeds, martyrs, without taking victims into account, end quote. Now, just this statement is absolutely crazy because he's saying the continuation of aggression, talking about Israel, and more specifically about Israel going in and arresting. They go into these Arab villages to arrest terrorists, and most of the times those terrorists fight back, start open fire on the IDF, get into a major firefight. A lot of times the terrorists are eliminated because the IDF, this is a gun battle. They go in, they attack them, they fight back, and the IDF almost always comes out on top in these attacks with taking out all these terrorism. That's what they're talking about, aggression. Also, he's saying the desecration of the Al-Aqsa Mosque will lead to painful attacks. So that, in the media, that sounds, oh, Israel's desecrating the Al-Aqsa Mosque. No, what he's talking about is Jews that are allowed for, 2-3 hours a day. They're allowed to walk around the very perimeter of the Temple Mount in a police escort. They're allowed to walk up there, not get close to any of the mosques, any of the holy sites on the Temple Mount. They're not allowed to pray. They're not allowed to move their lips. They're not allowed to bend over in an act that could be perceived as bowing down or any act of worship. That's what this guy, Hamas spokesperson, is talking about as the desecration of the Al-Aqsa Mosque. He's saying the Al-Aqsa Mosque is desecrated by Jews being anywhere near it, by being able to just be up there at all. It should be complete Jew-free zone. It should be a complete Muslim and Islam controlled area. That's what he's talking about. So stuff like this is absolutely crazy, but he's saying that we are going to continue fighting and we are going to continue murdering people because of what's happened, because of the quote-unquote Zionist occupation and the desecration of the Al-Aqsa Mosque. So very, very clear that the Palestinian Arab agenda here is to use violence and murder to attain their end, which, like I said before, is to completely eradicate Jews from the entire land of Israel. If you're a Christian and you are planning to celebrate Passover this year, we have the perfect Passover resource for you. Our Passover bundle includes the Passover Haggadah for Christians, which takes you through the Passover Seder, puts an emphasis on the Christian connection to Passover. Right along with the Haggadah, we have the children's coloring book, or we call it the Children's Haggadah coloring book. Lots of amazing coloring pages in there that go right along with the Haggadah that you will be using for the Seder. Then on top of that, we have the Zionist Trail Guide to the Psalms of Ascent. So the Psalms of Ascent are Psalm 120 through 134. And traditionally, these Psalms were sung by the children of Israel as they went up to Jerusalem to celebrate the feast, especially Passover. The Trail Guide to the Psalms of Ascent is absolutely incredible for Christians as well. And then we have the actual CD, the Psalms of Ascent, where all these Psalms are sung in English and in Hebrew. This entire bundle is on our website for a discounted price. You get a big discount if you buy all of them in a bundle, and you can actually even build your own bundle if you need more of one thing or another. Go to the link in the description below, or you can click up here to buy the Passover bundle for this Passover. All right, guys. Also happening this last week, which has been happening for the last, I think, 10 weeks straight, we've been having protests in Tel Aviv and actually lots of cities across of Israel, but protests every Saturday night. And according to the Jerusalem Post, this last Saturday, around 250,000 protesters took to the streets to protest the judicial reforms. Now, is this number accurate? Very, very hard to tell because I think this number actually came from the organizers of the event. So obviously they have a very strong political motive for saying more people came out than actually did. We don't really know if there was that many. Regardless if it was actually 250,000, it was a lot of people, okay? A lot of people came out to protest the judicial reforms. The question is, what are these guys protesting? What they say is they're protesting judicial reforms and the quote unquote end of democracy, saying that the Netanyahu government is ending democracy by reforming the judicial system. And we've talked about it a lot in the show. Hopefully we'll go into it more in shows coming up as well. But these judicial reforms are in no way actually ending democracy. And on the contrary, they're increasing democracy and making Israel more, taking the power from the iron grip of the left, which has held the judicial courts in Israel for for pretty much all of Israel's history. The Supreme Court of Israel, the judicial left has had an iron grip, and the judges reappoint themselves. It's a horrible system, not democratic at all, contrary to what they're telling you. But so they're trying to reform that and make it even more democratic. But the crazy thing is that they're saying that this is the end of democracy, that they're putting forth these reforms. The thing is, though, that over 2.3 million Israelis voted in the elections in November for these parties that were campaigning on these judicial reforms. So now that government, over 2.3 million people voted, those parties won a majority in the government. They formed a majority government, democratically fair, democratic election. They were elected as the majority government. They were promoting their campaign promises were these judicial reforms. Yes, the majority of Israelis voted for this. They voted for this government and for these reforms. And now the government is acting on their campaign promises, which and pushing forth these judicial reforms that will enhance democracy. And what is the left saying? What is and mainly it's coming from the leftist leadership. They're saying, this is the end of democracy. This is horrible. This is the end of the country. We need to rise up and we need to fight against this. We need to overthrow the government. We need to, and they've said this, we need to, if it takes violence, we'll have to do it violently. This is what the left have said as well. And the thing is, I can almost guarantee you that a lot, if not most, or maybe, close to a large percentage of these protesters have no idea what they're protesting against, have no idea what's actually in these judicial reforms, and what they're saying is the quote-unquote end of democracy. It seems like they are just listening and they're only hearing the radical agenda of the left here in Israel, Yair Lapid, Benny Gantz, all these guys who are saying things like this. And I'm going to read this. He said this in a speech on Saturday at one of the protests in Beersheba. Yair Lapid, leftists, who said, quote, Israel is in the greatest crisis in its history. A terrible wave of terrorism is hitting us. The economy is collapsing. Money is fleeing the country. Here in the South, personal security is collapsing every day anew. Yesterday, the Iranians signed an agreement with Saudi Arabia that will inject billions of dollars into their nuclear program. The only thing that interests the government is to continue crushing Israeli democracy and the unity of the Israeli people, end quote. Well, as it normally seems to be, the exact opposite of what the left, or the exact opposite, or I should say, exactly what the left is accusing Netanyahu's government of doing is exactly what the leftists are doing. Exactly what Yair Lapid is doing, that crushing Israeli democracy and the unity of the Israeli people by instigating a lot of this feeling against the judicial reforms, these protests, which a lot of them have turned sort of violent, where they're breaking barriers, they're blocking highways, doing all this kind of stuff, which is fomented by the leftist leadership. Seems like that is tearing the unity of the Israeli people indeed apart. And we know that these judicial reforms are in no way bringing an end to democracy. They are indeed increasing it. The very thing that they are accusing Netanyahu of doing, I'm sorry, but the left, as seems to be the case in many places, especially in the United States and around the world, that's exactly what the left is doing. Surprise, surprise, maybe not. Guys, let us know what you think in the comments below. Get the conversation going down in the comments below. Also subscribe, and thank you for listening. As always, tune out the fake news and tune in to what is actually happening here in the land of Israel. We'll be back every Monday through Friday with your direct connection to the land and people of Israel.